Stated, my name is Marta, I come from Poland, and my organization is called Forests and Citizens. I have the privilege to be speaking last, and I have taken the liberty to actually change the presentation yesterday in the evening, which was in the response to what I have heard. Because I have heard a lot about science, I have heard a lot about the fact that we know that we are fed bullshit, but the more I was listening, the more I was getting frustrated. And this is like a common experience I have. And my question is always like, what do I do about it? Do I change my job? Do I become depressed? Or do I bang my head against the wall till I am dead in some time? I have been looking for solutions, and I think, and obviously I don't want to sound too naive, but I think one of the solutions that hasn't been discussed yesterday enough, it has featured, I think, in the presentation before me a bit, is the public and protest and mobilization. And we have had some experience with that in Poland. And this is what I want to share, and I also want to then connect to laws and policy. But it's mainly about politics, and it also, I have to make a disclaimer, like Lina did. I am not a forester. I have not studied natural sciences, but I have studied policies and public policy. So I guess this also tells you where I come from. So first I wanted to share some study. This is a study that shows how people see forests and what it is that in Europeans, what it is that they value in forests. And as you probably know, if you ask people how important are several benefits of the forest for them, and it's important here to mention that the question was about a forest that's close to them. It's not a general question about forests in general. It's a question about forests that are close to them. Obviously, what comes to the fore are the cultural and regulating services. It is not the provisioning or productive services. This is a big study. The sample is 10,391. It was done in 33 countries, but the findings are consistent in different countries. I have been able to get the data for Poland. The sample is smaller, but I have been assured that the sampling is representative. And as you can see, the sequencing is somewhat changed, but the main finding is the same. It is what people value is regulating and cultural forest ecosystem services. And from other studies, it is known that this has changed a bit over time, and it has become more and more pronounced, and that these are the services that people value in forests, general public. And I think this is also something that Lina was talking about. If you talk to people, this is what they want to see forests as provisioning to the general population. And jumping to Poland, when I started my work, I started from actually my own local initiative. I was just pissed about what was going to happen with the forest that I consider my forest. In Poland, 80% of forests are public. So if you go to a forest, it's not a private forest, you can feel that you should be able to have a say in what's happening to the environment around you. And I have discovered that there were really bad things happening. At least I could feel so and think so after reading some documents. And I have also discovered that even though if I read the laws, it says that I have a right to information, I have the right to participate in decision making, I have a right to court, I have tested all these three rights, and I have discovered that this is not true. I have started to work with my own initiative, and with time I have learned that there is more initiatives like that, and since we have had some successes locally, people started to come to us, and this is how my organization has been born. We are now a platform. One of the first things that we have done is we started to map the number of initiatives, local initiatives that try to get engaged in forest policies, and you can see how the number has grown. In order to be qualified here, you do not have to be a full-time activist, but you need to do something solid. We test it. And so people do all these things that Lina was mentioning, so petitions, demonstrations, etc. But one thing that Lina did not mention, and I didn't have a chance to point out, is that in Poland, what we people encourage people to do is we encourage them to actually test the tools that we supposedly have. So, for example, take part in the forest management plan consultations, even if then people become a little bit frustrated because nobody listens to them. But we encourage them to test these ways and then prove that they are not working. And here is this number of initiatives broken down. So many of them are one-time initiatives, and at the moment there are so many that we are probably not catching all of them, definitely. But quite a few are long-term and mid-term initiatives, and these are usually not NGOs, but informal groups. They sometimes later on become an NGO. My own case is like this. I started as an individual, then a group grew, and then we registered an NGO locally. And then I have another NGO at the national level. So among these 179 long-term and mid-term initiatives, many of them have started to engage in forest policies more, not only at the local level, they get engaged at the nowadays also at regional and national level, and some of them are even interested in European policies. We haven't gotten to global yet, but I think at the European level they already feel themselves to be European citizens. They know what nature restoration law is, they follow the issues related to biomass, so they educate themselves, and this is really good in public debate, because you have really informed citizens. They could actually ask these questions. As Michał was mentioning, they can also go on Twitter and ask their MEP or some other representatives why they have done things that they have done, and they can hold them accountable. One thing that I also want to point out is that if you speak to Jagusztyn, who comes from a more environmental traditional organization, they usually don't like local governments, because local governments, especially in places where you have natural forests, they are against the protection of forest. In our case, if we go into usually that's cities and more developed places, and the forest is not so valuable, but some of them are also quite. You would find them interesting as naturalists. In these cases, local governments, once they find out that we have petitions with thousands of people signing, they become interested because it's a political issue. So out of all these cases, we have 50 initiatives where the local government actually supported pro-forest actions. So this is a change that we are seeing. And here I just wanted to show you what it looks like. This is Wrocław. This is southern Poland near Katowice, and this is actually the first case when we got engaged in forest management planning. That was in 2021 at the end of the year. Usually with forest management planning, what was happening was that the process was organized, nobody knew, there were no requests for changes in the plan, and it was just approved, and that's it. And all the paperwork was done, and it looked nice on paper. And we have discovered that if you mobilize people, you can get a few hundred papers sent in, and you can have people demand things, and then you have foresters who actually have to respond to these issues. And obviously, as you know, they have their prepared responses. But if you have well-educated citizens, they're going to push, and they're going to tell them that they're not going to accept bullshit. And this is what is happening. And we have discovered that this puts pressure on the system. And then the issue of forest becomes more visible in regional or national level politics. This is another case. This is from Gdańsk, and by the sea. And both cases, the first one and this one, you have really interesting forests there, which also have the natural value. And this is a place where there is no natural value, but at this picture you can see this is a huge power plant close to Bełchatów, and it was surrounded by forest, and this forest was being cut, and people were just suffering because this forest was a really protective forest for them. There was noise, there was pollution, so this was also a small level action that we supported. You can see me and my colleagues there, but on one picture you can also see a member of parliament who is now a vice minister. So she also took part in this meeting before she became the minister. She's not responsible for forests at the moment, but she's in the ministry. So this is how it grows. And this kind of movement, it has been noticed by social scientists, and we have one paper that was published about us, and it's about the new forest policy stakeholders. This is the paper which you can find online, and you can read. It's free access. And basically, what it is saying is that now in Poland we have 3 types of forest discourse. First 2 types are the traditional ones, which we have been seeing for many years, and the third one is new. So the first one is traditional conservation or environmental NGO, and in discourse emphasizes nature protection, biodiversity, natural heritage. The second one is obviously foresters, wood industry, traditional, also local governments, and they emphasize productive function and their expertise. They are the experts, they know what they're doing. It's good for the country, it's good for the society. And the third one is the bottom-up citizen forest movements with the growing support of local governments, which emphasizes nature protection, but this is including the so-called everyday nature and non-productive ecosystem services, not only biodiversity, the idea of citizenship, participation, and improved forest governance. So what does it mean, and what did it mean for us? It meant this. And I'm not saying that this is only because of this movement. It's also because of the work that environmental NGOs have done, but I feel that this mobilization about the forest, which was not only connected with the forest policies, it was also connected with the political situation in our country. Our state forestry was taken over by a very, very conservative party, which was using it for its political purposes, but it helped us, so it's not that bad. So as a result of all these factors, we had our lovely leader, who is now Prime Minister, Mr. Tusk. This is what he was saying before he was elected to power again. So he was saying, if you are a patriot, you will not accept the knocking down of forests and the poisoning of the Odra River. Right after he became a prime minister, he said that he wants for Polish family to see what a genuine forest looks like. Forests are not about timber management. Forests are a wholly national resource. And then, as a result of all this, in the coalition agreement, we had written very, very ambitious goals. So we have 20% of most valuable forests to be made logging free. We have state forests accountable to the society. We have ban on burning wood in power plants, and we have also rivers, air quality, national parks, peatlands, all mentioned in this agreement. So it all sounds really nice. The problem is that now you have to implement it. And actually, now I know it's like, be careful what you wish for, because the problem, as Jagusztyn was mentioning, it's an extremely interesting process, but there is also a lot of lessons learned, and I am now afraid that we are going to lose all this political and social capital that we have generated. But I have slightly more positive information, what has happened so far. So we had forests in 10 locations declared logging free in January 2024. It was first action of the government. It was the short-term solution. So we had some sort of moratorium on these locations. As Jagusztyn mentioned yesterday, it's 1.3% of forests. And this decision has been highly contested. It's being contested till now. We had, and we still have, a national level consultation process on forests to exclude 20% of forests from logging. So we have lots of meetings organized. We come and we discuss. Long time, obviously, no one is getting paid for this. We all work for the ministry for free, so we're in discussions. We basically are asked to write regulations, to write different sort of protocols, and we do, when I say we, it means NGOs, social groups, and also different stakeholders. It's all in negotiation with foresters and with the wood industry, with forest contractors. These documents are really interesting, and I think there is a lot of expertise in them. I'm just worried that I'm not sure if they're going to be implemented, but this is going on. We also had a process to stop the logging or limit the logging in the forests surrounding 9 largest cities, and this is going on as we speak. And it will end with the end of October. We have a revision of forest law plan, which is to address the European Court of Justice ruling on access to justice. And the other goal of this revision is to enhance the participation. The problem is that the proposed revision is very badly written, but they're doing it. And you also have policies targeting the wood market, which Jagusztyn knows much more about, which are attempts to ban burning groundwood in power industry and reduce exports. As far as I understand, these propositions are also not very high quality, correct? Thank you, Jagusztyn, even though it's not good news. And this is the bad news. So the process is very chaotic and a function of power struggle among the ruling parties. So our prime minister, he has declared for nature, forests, rivers, and so on, as you have seen. But now we find that he actually is not willing to lose the political capital he has, because farmers are protesting and wood industry is protesting. So he is not as an ecologically minded guy as we thought. As you might have believed. I didn't, but some people might have believed so. And obviously Poland is not supporting a nature restoration law. It hasn't been supporting it, and nothing has changed. As I've mentioned, we have a strong resistance from foresters, wood industry, forest contractors, and this endangers the whole process. And all the results I have mentioned on the previous slide, they are far from decided, and there are no permanent changes in law yet. So at the end, we might find out that there is a very little improvement, some tokenistic changes, but at the same time, we will have activist and social burnout and a big backlash. So, as I said, be careful what you wish for, and I think that the quality of decision makers and the way to which they're informed is a problem. So if you ask me for advice now, I would say I don't have advice yet, but one thing I can think of is be really well prepared. So have everything on table. So once someone wins and declares politically and declares that they want to help you push these policies through, just serve them everything. So this is what I would have done before if I was to repeat the process. And one more result that we have resulting from all this mobilization is that forests and forest policy has entered not only the political debate during the elections, but it has become a policy issue that everyone debates. I don't think it was like this previously. So we had this 1/4 of our country, which was left out, left to the foresters to decide. Everybody assumed that they were experts, and no one was challenging their knowledge. And now with all this mobilization and some of the tools that translate the forestry jargon and information and data to general population, their expertise on forests is being challenged. And here it's just one example. This comes from 2 weeks ago. In southern Poland, we had floods, as you might have heard, and these are the photos of public discussion in the media and in the social media about the reasons for this flood. And there was a lot of people, and also people who previously were not engaged in discussions about forestry, suggesting that the flood was also a result, it wasn't the only result, but it wasn't the only reason, but one of the reasons was that we had in these mountains, it's the mountainous region, we had very intensive logging, and that logging was the culprit for partially. And the map you can see here is the map that we did some time ago, 2 or 3 years ago, which shows to people what kind of logging is going to be done exactly in each place, and it uses user experience design, data visualization that's up to standard, and it makes people feel that this is not rocket science and they can actually understand what's going on with their forests, and then they feel that they have enough expertise to argue that maybe having this type of forestry in the regions that are now more prone to floods is not such a best idea. This is an interesting example that could be a topic of a whole presentation, because obviously state forests, they reacted, and it would be a great topic to discuss at length, but this is happening, and I think we will have more of this type of discussion, and foresters will be more and more challenged in their expertise about what they're doing. Okay, sorry. So I think I missed one slide, but what I wanted to tell you is that because I feel that there is a lot of value in mobilizing the general population. By general population, I don't mean everyone, but I think if you mobilized maybe 5, 6, 7% of the population and inform them and make them empowered with data and information and make this issue salient for them, then they become active and you really have a strong ally. And because of that, I believe that the rights I've mentioned at the beginning, which is right to information, right to participation in decision making, and right to justice, theoretically, or the rights that we have written, for example, in the Aarhus Convention, that they are really important. And this is why, together with Zoltan, we wanted to look for good practices. I know that in Poland we don't have many good practices, so I wanted to see whether we have some good practices in other European countries that we could take and then implement in Poland. And I'm not going to go into the details, but the results of this review have been that first of all, the 3 rights obviously are very strongly connected. Secondly, if you look for good practices, there are some good practices that are related to access to information, and some of them have been presented today. For example, the map from Sweden. There are some good maps from Germany that we were able to find. We believe that the map that we did is also quite a good practice, but because we have seen that it has really empowered people with information. But and this right to information, it prepares stakeholders to recognize their interest and participate in decision taking, or at least in criticism of what's going on. But we have found very little good practices actually equal to none with regards to participation in decision making and access to justice. Needs to be said that it wasn't a comprehensive review. We just found interviewees from 10 countries to speak to. So if you have any good examples of good practices with regards to these 3 laws, I would really love to hear about them. But it seems that we really do not have good practices to follow, even though, as you know, these rights they sound really good, and I feel that they could really be game changers. And obviously, practices that do exist, most often they are created or facilitated by NGOs. It's not our governments that take care of implementing these rights. And this is my, following yesterday's practice, this is my, I don't know, it was my this is not my last slide. God, I'm not sure why it's not showing. But I had some other conclusions here. Oh, it's testing my memory. So So yeah, I guess what I wanted to tell you, just to sum up, is that first of all, be careful what you wish for, but secondly, try to mobilize people, because social mobilization is really important. Thirdly, if you look at the traditional participants in this dialogue about forests, the conservation and environmental organizations, their focus is mostly, and it's probably most of you, the focus is mostly on biodiversity. So some of these organizations might be worried that if you put more focus on non-productive, other than on the services other than biodiversity and non-productive ecosystem services, that this might create some sort of conflict. I think that in most cases, you can really reconcile these conflicts if it's only between these functions. Obviously, with productive function, it's much more difficult. And I think these were my most conclusions. I think there were 4. I might be missing some. Sorry for this slide, which just disappeared. So yeah. So this is my email address if you are interested in learning more.
Thank you, Marta. Before I just go on, just a quick question and please a quick answer. What got you actually motivated in the first place to go on this journey?
Anger.
Anger. It was the feeling of something is not right.
Yes, and the fact that I was, I always tell this story. The forest that I started with was my forest. I spent a lot of time abroad. When I was coming back to Poland, I was coming back to a particular place in Poland, and I've learned that there's going to be clear-cut logging. So that was one thing. I was worried, but I think what really pissed me most was that I wanted to find out about it, and there was absolutely no information, and I was treated as if I was a child. And I find that when I work with people, as long as I get to send them to the forestry office and be treated like that, I don't have to do any more motivation work. They're so angry at how they're treated that they go on, and they end up learning about the biomass, NRL, and arguing with the foresters. So,
well, they clearly mistreated the wrong person, I must say.
Yes, and also actually one other thing, my partner is a programmer, so I have a dragon, and I'm not afraid to use it.